Happy December 3rd, YouTube. Bald Eagle Veteran here. Today we're going to show you how we put together our sugar for our fondant feed stations for our beehives. We use regular granulated sugar and mix it up with a low water content, and then we pack it into a frame so that our bees can enjoy it. This is the frame here. You can see it's 2 inches deep. We don't fill it up quite all the way, but pretty much okay to fill it up to the top and make sure it's level so that your inner cover has a place to function. Basically need some bee space in there. Alright, so this is a frame. I've got a buddy down in Stafford, Virginia that puts these together, and he helped me get my bees through the winter last year with some of these, 3 of them, and all 3 hives made it through winter. One of the benefits is that the sugar will absorb moisture that's coming up from below, and of course if it's getting absorbed, then it's not dripping back on the bees and chilling them and killing them. So one of the things we need to do is we need to, well, let's mix the sugar first. Let me show you how I do that. And just before I go there, I use this old signage from elections. It's corrugated plastic as a backing to keep the sugar from falling through the grate that you were just looking at. And so this fits in the small side, which is the underside. I pack it up in there, and then I put these 1/2-inch caps so that they'll hold this up. So when I'm packing the sugar, it's not pushing this back down to the lower level. So I'm going to have a 1/2-inch gap in the bottom. 1/2-inch gap is going to be maintained here so that the bees have room to work. See how that fits in there? So we want to maintain that gap, and we'll use this just temporarily while the sugar is drying, and while, of course, while we're loading it up. All right, what am I missing? Let's get this chair out of the way. So if you have 2 or more hives, then you might as well go ahead and buy the 25-pound bag of sugar. I get this at Walmart. It seems to be the best deal around here in Northern Virginia, although some of you have sugar processing plants near you that have waste sugar that you could really save a lot of money by getting. And that's great for your spring sugar water as well as preparing these boards. Alright, and I don't want to get sugar all over Mama's house. Be careful about that. Alright, so you want the consistency of the sugar to be kind of like moist sand or really cold snow, you know, where it doesn't pack real tight, but it kind of does stick together, okay? I'm just breaking up any clumps in here right now. This bag's been sitting outside since I was planning on using it before too long. Just a few clumps from drippage, I assume, on the bag inside the greenhouse. Break up the rest of the way. Okay, so you got your sugar. See, it just falls down. And now you need to wet it. Now you don't want to over wet it. It shouldn't really feel wet. Okay, so let me show you what that looks like. I have this little spigot on my bottle here. I'm just gonna squirt a little bit. If it looks gray like that, it's too wet. But we're going to mix it in, and that's going to all turn white again. And it's best to do this somewhere where if it gets outside the bowl, that's not going to attract ants to a place that you don't want the ants to go. Just keep working it in so that that moisture touches the life of every grain of sugar. You can see how it's starting to hold together, kind of like snow that's cold, or sand that's not too wet but it's wet. What I mean by snow that's cold, of course, is that if it's too cold for the snow to melt, it doesn't stick together like it does when it's a little bit warmer. It's that powdery, for you skiers, powdery consistency versus the wet, slushy consistency. You need to make sure you get all that dry stuff from the bottom rotated up to the top, and that it's all packing. This is close to where I want it, but it's not all. See, this is a little bit too loose here right now. It's not holding together as good as I want. Again, you got to get all the water, all the sugar has got to have some moisture to it. You want to clean the bottom. Alright. Alright, so this time I'm going to take some water that I have Honeybee Healthy in and some essential oils just to help the bees out a little bit. Wash up. And Honeybee Healthy is basically vitamins and minerals and stuff that'll help your bees. So you've taken away their honey, or most of it. I always leave a whole honey super on top of my brood box for the bees. Between that and this, they should be able to make it through the Virginia winter. And like I said, got all my bees through winter last year, and I have to attribute it to the changes I made, and this is one of them. So I have this water bottle, holes drilled in the top. And this is my Honeybee Healthy with my essential oils and water. So we're just gonna sprinkle some of that on there, mix that in, and that should take care of this batch. As you can tell, that's not a whole lot of water. We basically just wet the top both times, less the second time than we did the first time. Slow down. Now that's more the consistency that we want. Again, I'm pulling sugar from the bottom, put it on top. Make sure, don't be afraid to compact that, because that helps the water to get moved from one section to the other. If it's too wet, then you're squeezing it out. It's going to equal, what's that called? It's going to equalize, because the water has a certain way of attracting to itself. And if you are being dispersed uniformly, I'm sure there's some kind of hydraulic action terminology for that. And if you know, just leave it in the comment down below. Okay, again, I'm just making sure that I get all the dry sugar from the bottom up to the top. And all right. So once that dries, it should be pretty solid. if it doesn't dry, when it dries, if it doesn't stay solid, if it's still kind of crumbly when you push on it, then you can take a fine squirt bottle and wet it down a little bit. And then come back in another 48 hours and check it and see if it's hard again, but it should get pretty hard. All right, so we're finished here. I think this is the consistency that we want. And so, as I was indicating a moment ago, we're going to use these 1/2-inch covers for peanut butter and other food bottles. They're all about the same height, and that's going to hold the plastic, the corrugated plastic, up inside that 1/2-inch cavity on the bottom of our frame. So I'm going to slide this in there, and I cut it so it will be snug. We don't want this sugar sneaking around the sides, blowing out. Okay. All right, and that's going to hold. See? That plastic staying up. That's exactly what we want. I got a little bit of snug that up there. All right. One more thing, we need to leave a little opening where we want the air to be able to circulate, so it comes up from the bees right about in the center, depending on where they're doing their clump. It's amazing how you forget the proper terms for things when you're trying to talk about it. Anyway, so typically it's in the middle, and the moisture is going to be rising up off the bees because they're shaking and shivering to keep it to create heat. And as they do that, they release moisture and the heat moves that moisture up. It'll hit the bottom of the sugar. A lot of the moisture will get absorbed, but we want there to be circulation, so there's going to be a little hole over here. So let me grab that. Doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be fancy. But you want the bees to be able to get through it. I think I left that outside, so we're just going to use this little pot here. All right, so we're just going to have this space right here in the middle, so that's going to leave a gap for the bees to come up through. They can get to the top side, or they can go out the inner cover access hole, which is about maybe a 1/2-inch hole. All right, let's get started. So this is not enough, of course, to do this whole thing. So we're just going to start it, and we'll have to make another batch to finish it. All right, so I'm just going to hold this and pack the sugar around it. And again, we want this to be no taller than the side edge because we want to maintain bee space. And you want to pack the corners tight because you do not want places for pest bugs to hide that your bees have to deal with, like ants and stuff. So if ants come in here, you want the bees to be able to get to them and run them out. Here's some scratches in the background. That's Rhea, the cat, my daughter's fur baby. I couldn't see her taking care of a dog, so I compromised on the kitten. And I was very happy when I was able to teach her to play fetch, so kind of takes care of the dog need for me and the kitten need for her. Worked out for both of us. Okay, so that should pack in pretty good and hold that consistency. So we're going to have to make at least one, maybe another half of a batch, 1.5 batches to finish this off. I have a stick to score across this to make sure it's level, but it's outside, so we'll get that in a minute. All right, batch number 2. We will probably finish this bag of sugar, that's for sure. We need at least the same size we just did. Not more. Don't put too much in there because then it's going to be a little difficult to manage and keep in the bowl. We don't want the sugar getting out without it being properly prepared to harden up with the moisture level being high. So no loose grains. I'm probably going to have to run the vacuum around here because we got carpet and we don't want it. Okay, so it shouldn't be gray, it should be white. That's why we're going to work this in until there's no gray. It's all back to white. Pull the dry sand up to the top. Work it in. Rotate it. If you have a bigger bowl, good for you. You won't have to mix so many batches. You don't really want more than you need, that's for sure. In fact, I might shortchange this one because I definitely don't want to make more than I need. We know we need at least this much in, probably half a gallon. Now in the spring, whatever the bees don't eat, you can just put that in a bucket and mix it up with some water. You know, sugar, 2-to-1 syrup in the early spring. And that way the bees can start consuming that as if it were nectar. And until all the blooming starts in the spring, they'll have some food source. And I have a 2-gallon inner feeder for my hives that will get that in the spring. When I don't have honey supers on, I pretty much keep those in and available for the bees, especially during late July and August dearth, when there's less forage for them. Alright, let's see if we got all this stuff. Remember, just pulling the dry sugar up from the bottom, moving it to the top. Make sure the consistency is throughout. Moisture content is distributed well. I think this is good. All right. So now we're going to put our Honeybee Healthy stuff in there. Mix that in. We'll wrap this one up. Again, not too much, just enough to wet the top. Mix that in. I have lemongrass, which the bees are attracted to. Lemongrass oil, organic, food grade. I have thyme oil, which helps most of your essential essential oils have antibacterial, antifungal, and antiviral properties, and that's what they're here for. So why are we using them? And of course, the lemongrass will help draw the bees up to make sure that they come up to feed on this when the temperatures are good and they're not holding together so tight to keep the brood warm and the queen. All right, well, the first person that puts the term I'm looking for the bees clumping, you're gonna win something. I don't know what, but I'm gonna reward you. That's funny. It's like a mechanic saying, I can't remember how to say flat tire. Oh, that's it, it's a flat tire. Or what's that, TPM, TMP for your tire pressure monitoring system or whatever. I guess a mechanic could have a problem remembering what the TPM is standing for. He has a brain cramp at my age. All right, this is feeling like it's the right consistency. And I'm just swiping down the side, pulling it up to the top, and working my way around to make sure everything is well mixed. Right. It feels sticky, so that means it'll stick together when it dries, okay? All right, let's get this in there. Okay, this one I'm just gonna mix, spread out low. I mean, it's not coming all the way to the top, it's just gonna cover the surface. Cover the spring and that lower ledge there, that half-inch ledge. Pretty close. Now when sugar gets wetter, it packs tighter. Okay? So since this has less water in it, it's packing more like a cold or dry powdery snow. Just making sure that my edges are tight, because like I said, we don't want any bugs to have a place to hide. All right, that's how we do it. And we will let this dry. 2 days, about 48 hours typically is good. It depends on the environment where you've got it. And you know, how much moisture is in the air and what the temperature is, stuff like that. But this, which is still soft, it's going to turn to this. Rock candy. And the bees do love it. Last year, I had 3 of these. 2 of them were very thoroughly consumed. I mean, just a couple of thin sheets were still available. One hive didn't touch it hardly at all. I assume that's because they had more honey in their honey super, and they did fine with that. And so this is the gap that we leave so that the bees can come up, eat from the top, they can eat from the bottom, and this allows air to circulate out. With your inner cover, has a little cutout in it, just I think it's a 1/2 inch, and allows air to flow out, and then that helps keep your bees dry, and helps allow the circulation to come in, and gives them a wonderful source of energy through the winter. But you know, just last week we had a warm day, and my bees were bringing in pollen. So Virginia is a unique environment. It's supposed to be a mild winter this year, and with El Nino or Nina or whatever, and we're expecting lots of rain, so it will be important that you make sure your bees have supplements because they're not typically going out in the rain. On a day like today where it was kind of misty and stuff like that, they might go out. But if it's raining, less chance of them going out, so the more food they're going to need to survive. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and share. If you have any questions, just put them down there. If you have any comments, put them down there in the bottom. This is a learning thing. Beekeepers know one thing. We don't all do everything the same way because not everything works the same way in every locale. We don't all have the same bee genetics. We don't have all the same flora growing in our neighborhood or a 5-mile radius of our hive. So things do work different. The humidity level in the air can have your bees behaving differently than the humidity in the air in my area. So again, please share what you're experiencing and what you think we could do better. And I'm not a video editor, so it's live, so you get a lot of duh and ooh ah stuff in here, but this is what we have, and hope you enjoy it and can learn something from it.